When there's tough to be done, there's the new generation Hilux.
Welcome back. It's Talking BOKS, proudly driven by Toyota. We've obviously just finished the Scotland test. A good win by the Springboks, but a win that was a bit nervy at times. Scotland really gave their all, and certainly a huge test for a lot of the youngsters over there. With me, as always, is Nick Mallet and Gavin Rich. Nick, let's almost start with you. The big win for the BOKS and a big test, and a lot of that Rassie would have learned beyond the scoreline from that game.
Yeah, it was. It was actually pretty much as we predicted, which is quite nice when you get it vaguely right. We knew that Scotland were an experienced team, that they had come off a couple of good wins, France, England, and obviously beating Argentina away. So pretty confident coming into this game, and I thought we started the game really well. Used a lot of our physicality. I know that Rassie, made all these changes, but you can never take away the physicality from a South African rugby player. He's born with it. Basically, it's in our culture to get stuck in, And I thought in those first 15, 20 minutes we were really good. And then of course Scotland, as when you watch Glasgow Warriors play, and they had a number of those players in the team, they never go away. They are fighters. They came back. They've used a lot of skill and a lot of pace. They also reasonably direct, and they found a few holes. And getting up to 14-all at halftime, I thought, this is very similar to England. And but have we got the experience now with the guys on the bench? And what I really liked was the fact that the experienced players did come through. Your Pollard played well, and I thought Jesse Kriel played well. I thought that Damien Willems was good again. Whether he was at centre or at fullback, he was good. So the experienced players came through, and then a lot of youngsters put their hands up as well. I think much more mature than his years. He's been captain of all teams going up, so he's a really good player. Eric Lowe, Evan Roos, took their chances. It was good. I think at the end of the game, when Scotland came back to within 7 points, and there was that cross kick where Carl Steyn knocked it on. I think if he'd caught that and managed to fend off the defender and scored, and drawn, got up to whatever it was, 35-all. It would have been a hairy last few minutes, but thankfully he dropped it, and we managed to get the last try. All in all, it was a good performance, but luckily they didn't manage to score that final try, the cross kick, and it was getting a bit stressful there in the last 10 minutes.
Gav, we spoke afterwards, and you were very, very positive about the win as well. The BOKS learnt a lot out of this game. There's a lot of guys. Rassie said afterwards, there's a lot of guys who need some work. But by that, I think people must also understand that he doesn't mean he's going to throw them away. He knows what it is to win a World Cup, and he knows now where those guys stand in relation to that.
Well, Brenden, you said at the start of the show that it was a very nervy experience, and well, because you sit next to me often, that often I am very nervous and tense during a game, and I wasn't yesterday. And people, as I said to you, WhatsApp me beforehand. What do you think is going to happen today? Do you think Rassie's like over experimenting? Aren't you concerned? And I said, no, I'm not concerned. I said, because I think the BOKS will win, but I said if they don't, it's a fine time for a wake up call. And Rassie knows that, so we sort of understand. I think South Africa as a whole now are understanding Rassie's. Even though I'm still getting messages like that, like what's he doing? I think most people are starting to understand it. Maybe the messaging is coming through the media quite well now. That he is testing players, and what most impressed me about yesterday, and why I rank this as one of Rassie's best wins, was how he stuck with his experimental approach, even once they were under the cosh and Scotland were threatening to win, to press for the win, because it could so easily have just, when Kieran Horn came on, he could so easily have just put him at fullback, which is his regular position, or else keep Fussy at fullback and put Kieran Horn at wing, where he has played before, keep Damien Willemse at inside centre and Pollard at fly half. This, of course, after the injury to Ethan Hooker. And if it was a World Cup final, I mean, we wouldn't have taken that team into a World Cup final. But if it was a World Cup final and it was a must-win game, I think that's what Rassie would have done. But he wanted to see Handre Pollard play at inside centre. He wanted to give Kieran Horn another go at fly half. And to me, that was hugely impressive. That he obviously had the same sort of equanimity about him during the game that I did. Because as I say, towards the end of the game, you were getting quite tense. And I said, it really doesn't bother me if the Boks don't win today. Maybe I've got a soft spot for Scotland, which I don't have for England and the All Blacks. But it was just, I mean, in the corresponding game in 2022, the Boks played against Wales in Bloemfontein with a similar experimental team. It was exactly the same stage of the season. The second game, it was the year before the World Cup, and the Springboks lost that game, and they went on and they won the World Cup the next year. They learnt out of that game. We learnt yesterday, but we didn't have to lose. To me, that's the sign of the growth of the Springbok team.
Yeah, and Nick, I don't know if you want to come in there. I was going to say, Rassie did say that this game meant so much more to them than playing against a Portugal or a Georgia. He mentioned Georgia specifically, and he learned so much more because they're a tier 1 side. They're number 5 in the world at the moment, Scotland. So he would have learned a lot out of this game.
Absolutely, he would, and the experience. Getting on the field, Jan-Henrik Wessels playing hooker. You had Zach Pawson at tight head against a very good loose head, obviously in Schoeman. It was there were lots and lots of lessons. I mean, I thought there were lots of mistakes made. I mean, we were being not cut to pieces, but they found huge holes in our defensive system in that second half and scored some great tries and missed out on a couple of other opportunities. So. While I agree with Gav in that he's learning a lot, and his comment that they need work, I think they need work to be more collectively good. To get to have an understanding of the system. They need more work in that. I don't think they need more physical work in terms of being fitter. I just think in terms of understanding, the way in which they want them to defend, and they want us, and the coaching staff want us to attack. There's a bit of work to be done. But because Scotland are such a good team and are always threatening to beat any big side, and they've already, as we said, England and France in the Six Nations. It's a real test for our players. So, but conversely, for Scotland, it was a difficult game. They had a long way to fly from Argentina across a couple of a couple of these. You lose hours or whatever it is in sleep. And on top of that, you're playing at altitude, and you're playing against a fresh, very motivated young Springbok side that doesn't want to let the country down. So there was a good balance to it. And in the end, I think the result was a fair one. I think I thought less than 7 points, and right up until the grubber at the end of the game, I was in with that score. And I think probably that's what it felt like. It felt like that last try was a wonderful, and Kriel did so well to score it. But I thought we sort of got ourselves into a situation at 35, whatever it was, that we'd put them behind us. And then they came back, and there was a little bit too much time. With 10 minutes, they can easily score 2 more tries. And that was a very tense moment for us, but I thought the team came through it well.
Yeah, wasn't that an experience because it almost felt to me as if the Boks had done what they've started to make a habit. We spoke about this last week. They've made a habit now, because that's why I'm starting to get a bit reluctant to talk about scores flattering us in that, because it's almost like the Bok way. We sort of grind them down, and I thought when they went 35-14, I sort of was sitting there thinking, okay, it's another day at the office for the Boks. That it's the same thing, and they had an inexperienced team on the field, and maybe you could tell us, because when you're sitting in the press box, you don't necessarily notice exactly who missed a tackle. Okay, you could look at the team monitor. Maybe you could tell us where there was dysfunction in the defense in those last minutes. We scrambled really well, but Scotland throughout the game did find holes.
I think it's just the way that they play. Yeah, they've got that Tuipulotu is an absolutely outstanding player, and I think right up there with one of the best in the world. And he has an ability, to fit defenders. he's a devastating runner himself and very physical. So he's a threat individually, which makes you have to stop on him. But on top of that, his ability to either play the short pass to a guy coming on a hard line or to play out the back is brilliant. And his timing of it is so good. He doesn't ever do it too early. He does it right in the jaws of the defense. And so many times our forwards just chose the wrong guy. You know, there would be two runners coming, hard runners coming, and there'd be the fly-off would be like Finn Russell would be curling around the back. And our guys were getting confused as to which of the two runners they should close down and whether they should worry about Finn Russell around the back. And then he's too good, you know. He just watches the defender. And if that defender hesitates or drifts or stops too quickly, he will play the guy that's... And I think they had about three occasions when one of their forwards just ripped down the middle of our field. And had they had closer backline support, they did once, and twice they finished it off. But there were other occasions when they could have finished it off, and our scramble defense closed them down, which was good. But that is, I think, Finn Russell, Tuipulotu are very, very dangerous when they get that flow. And we did talk about it before, but to give us credit, we didn't give them too much front football. And I think Scotland will take a lot out of that. They will say, listen, if we go through this game, we probably had 8 try-scoring opportunities, and we only took 4 of them. You know, if we'd taken 6, we'd have been in this game. And that's our challenge. Our challenge is to get better at taking the opportunities. So it's that. And what France do well and what New Zealand do well is this delayed pass, and by especially 1 or 2 or 3 defenders out. So around the ruck, it's the first and second defender. They worry about the 9 and 10. The third defender now has the center running onto him with this variety around him, and that is complex. And you, as I think Schalk mentioned, you've got to close down the front door, as he calls it. You know, you must make sure that flat runner doesn't get the break. If he plays out the back, then you can work really hard to cover and to shift. And it's hard work, but don't start shifting early, because you start shifting early, that guy's going to beat you on a soft shoulder.
I was going to say, guys, before we go to the Toyota's toughest player thing, last week, before the game, we spoke about a number of players who needed to have big games. Gav, I'll start with you here. We spoke about Evan Roos, Wilco Low, and I think Kobus Wissel was the other one. Rassie did say that there were some players that maybe didn't do as well as he'd hoped. And he did also say that there's some players who need, obviously, a lot of work. Just your thoughts on those guys we mentioned, how they did. In Evan Roos's case, he said Elrich Low sort of surpassed him when he came onto the field. And in Embrose Papier's case, he said that they needed some leadership. Villa is what he called it. They needed some wheels on the field when they brought Grant Williams on. And he obviously made a big difference. So, Gav, just those guys we spoke about. And then, Nick, if you want to come in afterwards.
Yeah, well, firstly, Kobus Wissel. That bullocking run of his, I mean, it was like something out of, what do you call these things? Superhero book or movie. I mean, that was just phenomenal. And he was so busy in the time that he was on the field. I mean, it was almost, I said to you, I think Kobus has been listening to Nick, because that's what Nick said during last week's show, that he needs to be more busy and needs to up his work rate. But unfortunately, we never got to see him go deep, because he got injured, and that's what Rassie would have wanted to see was how deep he could go with that work rate. He came off the field injured quite early, as you know, and was replaced by Ben Jason Dixon, who was absolutely phenomenal despite his yellow card. So I think that he probably managed to tick a box there because of what he did whilst he was on the field, with the caveat being that we need to see more of him. Evan Roos, I'm sorry for Evan Roos, because when you start the game, it's a different game to when maybe a little bit later on. I do agree with Rassie that Elrich Low looked like he made a difference, and he carried well, and he was really good when he was on. But then it's also at a stage of the game where the game's different, if you know what I'm saying. And very early on, I mean, it was evident that Scotland were completely up for it, and we saw Evan run into this brick wall a couple of times. So I'd say it's a little bit hard to judge Evan Roos on that. But I would say that Elrich Low was excellent. I would actually want to talk about somebody who's more experienced and who's concerning me a bit. And I know like there's some people have been commenting on social media. Does Afaleli Fassi just need to play himself back into form after his injury, or is there a problem there? Because I'm not that convinced about. I mean, I think he was brilliant before he got injured, and last year before he was injured against the All Blacks, he was probably the first choice fullback. But just lately, I feel that he's not he's not quite as authoritative as he was, and maybe that's why I bring Nick in, because just maybe the back three generally, because I think some people are also asking questions if Edward's really the answer as well. I mean, we've got lots of options there, but it's one area that I was thinking about overnight. Nick?
Yeah. Just to come in on the back three, I thought Ethan Hooker did really well. To come in, you're not having played for a long time. He won a really good turnover early on in the game. He's a very big physical guy and a top player. I'm sorry Caden Moody didn't start, because playing at his home base, I think he would have. And he also has blown hot and cold in the season so far and needs a bit of work. The ball didn't seem to go towards Van der Merwe in this game, did it really? He sort of, I'm not sure if he had a low work rate, but I just didn't see him for a long period in that first half. I wasn't aware of, because the ball didn't appear to go towards his side. And with regard to Afaleli Fassi, I think it is a big issue that he's been out for a very long time. And it's one thing training and practicing with the Springboks, it's completely another one getting your timing right on up and unders, getting your timing right, with kicking at altitude, making sure that the ball doesn't go out on the full when you punt it, and making good decisions. All of those, it's a difficult position, fullback. It really is like fly half. You need a bit of time there, and I know that, for example, Damien, who's as experienced as he is, he was very nervous to go back into the fullback position. He wanted to start again at centre, because there's a lot of physicality there. He likes to get involved. But going back, you get exposed at fullback, and I think now he's got the confidence to play in both positions, particularly at fullback. So I think that firstly, he needs just to get more confidence. I think he's got all the talent, and he's certainly improved on areas that he was poor. He was a very poor defender. He didn't tackle. He wasn't great under the high ball for a fullback, which was really difficult, and he was sent away for a couple of years and said, listen, you've got to harden up, mate, and do the hard stuff. And he did that. He had one really good season. So for the moment, I'm not gonna, we're not gonna shoot him down. He's still got lots of talent, and he's got time to get back in there.
Nick, maybe you just want to chat about Evan Roos as well while we.
And then I thought what Gavin said was absolutely right. I think in the beginning of the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, everyone is up for it, and you're trying to make those hard yards. Sometimes Evan, I think, should. I mean, it's just when I look at him play, he doesn't run. Remember, Mitchell had this. John Mitchell had this expression: "Run for the branches as opposed to the trunk." He seems to run at a player, whereas what you should be doing is running between two players. If you're a strong player like Evan is, you're going to make a half break if you can go in between two players, and I think he needs to use a bit of evasive action when he runs, because sometimes he just runs into two set tacklers, and he's not lacking courage, but you're not going to make yards at international level against really good defenders like that. So just at the beginning of the game, I completely agree. As the game loosens up, I think opportunities then come for players like Elric Lowe and like Evan Roos. But he was taken off before those opportunities came, and it was quite a tough one for him. In fact, a little bit like Hanekom against England. The game didn't really. He was taken off before he had an opportunity to show what he could do as well. I thought so. Both of them are talented players, but didn't actually manage to get to impress quite like a Paul de Villiers did, for example, in the two games that he managed to play.
Well, you bring me straight into
sorry, Brenden. I just wanted to ask you a question. I mean, it was the Bulls beating Glasgow yesterday at Loftus, which must have pleased you. What did you think of those players that you've mentioned? Because I'd be interested to know. I mean, we haven't spoken that much about it.
Yeah, no. I mean, look, I know before the time, Russie used the Glasgow thing as a big motivating tool in the team talk on Friday. And so, and obviously, when Scotland started coming back, there were some flashbacks from me. That's probably why I was feeling a bit nervy, because I'd seen that happen with Glasgow against the Bulls, and this was virtually a Glasgow side in Scottish colours. I think I agree with both of you on Evan Roos. I think just sometimes, I don't know. I felt Elric made a much more direct impact on the game, and as you said, there are reasons for that. I thought Quibus Vissel was very good when he started. I thought Ambrose Papier, that break of his was exceptional, and that's typical Ambrose Papier. But I thought around that, maybe he could have used these players around him a bit better, and I think that's probably what Russie was saying. Grant Williams did pick out guys better. Generally, I mean, I agree with most of the stuff you guys say. So it's there's no disagreement there. I think there's a lot they would have learned, and they would have gone back to the players now and spoke to them about it, probably in this week on one-on-ones on what they want them to do further. And that's why I'm also not that worried. I think it was a very good win for a very young side. I said to you, Gav, the thing that I remarked on Friday when I was at the team photo was the fact that I saw Ruan Nokia in the front row of that team photo, and he had 19 caps, and that just sort of underlined, yeah, how inexperienced that side was to me. So I think a great result all around. But I want to bring us back. We've got to do the Toyota toughest players. So I'm going to bring us into that. Hilux Toyota, the new Toyota Hilux has got a great saying: "When there's tough to be done." And I know it's the easiest thing would probably to say Peter Steph de Toy, but I think there's a couple of candidates after yesterday, because there was some tough that needed to be done. And Nick, maybe start with you. I think for me, Paul de Villiers, Zach Port, and those type of players came through. Who was your Toyota's toughest player?
Yeah, you did mention Pollard, and I thought he was under tremendous pressure before going into this test match. You know, he didn't have a good game in that final, and particularly the first half he played. And Marnie had played so well against England, so there was a lot of pressure on Handre Pollard before this game, and I thought he managed it well. I thought he managed very few mistakes, kicked well, moved quite happy to move into centre, did well when he played. That little grubber was absolutely spot on. So given the pressure he was under, I think he was his reliable best, and so he'd get my vote.
Yeah, I'd agree with Nick on Pollard, but I find it hard to ignore Paul de Villiers' contribution in that early part of the game. I mean, he's just everywhere. I actually thought Grovy's had a good game as well. I mean, he missed some early lineouts, but I remember seeing him make at least one steal. It was, but Paul de Villiers. I agree with Nick though, Pollard as well. But I mean, if we have to choose one, you're gonna have to choose between what myself and Nick say. I would say Paul de Villiers. I'm going Paul de Villiers.
Okay.
I think
that's absolutely fine, guys. Paul de Villiers is the sort of guy that you will always go to because of the nature of the way he plays. You know, he's a real menace at the breakdown, and he carried so well. You know, I love that two-handed carry of his where he was showing the ball left and right and weaving in amongst defenders. You can count on him. You just know he's going to give you a good performance. Whatever the situation on defense or on attack, he's good. So I thought that would be an easy choice. I just thought that he wasn't under pressure, whereas Pollard was under a tremendous amount of pressure. And don't forget, the older you get, the harder it is. It's not that easy just to be, to roll out, the perfect performance. And I thought he did well. And I thought he was physical too. I thought he got stuck in defensively. But happy to go. What's really good is that we can say about the Springboks team that played, probably 4 or 5 guys put their hand up. So if we've got a lot of reliable players who aren't necessarily in the full starting lineup, that's very good for us.
What I liked about Polly yesterday was his fielding. I mean, he did a lot of work in fielding the hard balls. He did a lot of work in the backfield yesterday as well. So he was. I mean, he was a work. You are right, and you're almost making me change my mind now. Just remembering that aspect of his game. He was. I like. It's the word omnipresent is one that I often use when you're talking about a flanker. He's everywhere. And yesterday, Polly was everywhere, and he did okay at centre when he had to move there as well. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll give it to Nick on this occasion because I think Paul de Villiers is going to get a lot of these awards going forward.
I was gonna come in and I was just gonna say Handre Pollard just because I think we saw glimpses of the Handre Pollard of old. We saw the attacking the gain line. I thought Paul de Villiers, the one thing I did like is that I saw a different side of him. I saw him running with the ball, not just doing the support work and the stuff at the breakdowns. You saw him being more of an attacking threat, which was good. But Handre for me as well, I think he's an easy choice then. I think Jesse Creel could have also come into that. As Nick says, there's probably 5 or 6 players that we could have talked about. Yeah, and then just now looking forward, let's start looking forward to Wales, guys. Just what do you think? I reckon we're going to probably see a start for Vusi Moyo there in Durban. He's been part of the squad, and maybe Jaco Williams. Just maybe your guys' thoughts on that. Who do you expect to see in Durban next week?
I think Vusi Moyo off the bench, Brenden. I'm not sure that we'll see him start. I think we might see Rassie going with one of the more experienced fly halves. If you're looking for somebody who'll probably start next week, because he was only introduced very late in the game yesterday, and it is his former hometown. In fact, the place where he was sort of brought up. I mean, as a former Maritzburg College head boy and everything, I think we'll probably see somebody like Ntutuku Mchunu start next week. I don't think Rassie's going to go too radical with the selection in the sense of sort of choosing just under 20 players. So I'm not sure. Yeah, we might see Jaco Williams start because of what we were talking earlier on about the back three. But I'd be surprised if Rassie came up with like sort of too much of a like some people after the press conference last night were saying, we might see all these young players. We probably will see young players. I mean, he'll want to see some of the players he's worked with in training, but because he's worked with them in training, he knows what he's getting. So I'm not expecting it to be too radical. I'm thinking that we'll see a different team, certainly to the one that we saw now. But yeah, we'll see who's right during the week. But I think Vusi Moyo off the bench rather than as a starter.
Yeah. And for me, we were down to, I don't know what our eighth, certainly Noki is not our eighth lock. He's obviously up there, but Corpus Vista, I mean, if you had to put a list, which Rusty did, I mean, there were 8 or 9 locks, 8 or 7, whatever it were, that weren't available. So it'll be quite nice to see a couple of our locks available, to see if Lurt de Jager is perhaps getting back in there. I'm not sure what we spoke a lot about Etzebeth. It would be nice to hear, what they're thinking around him. Is he going to have to wait until the All Black tour, give him a nice long break until then? I also quite interested to see they started Bonfenta, and Tux has had a really good season with the Stormers. He's really played well at loose head. So it'll be really good to see him get a start again. He's a rampaging ball carrier when he gets the opportunity, a bit like Oxenchair. Possibly not quite up there as a scrummager yet, but learning very, very quickly from Brock Harris and also obviously Don Human when he's with the box. When you're scrumming against the top guys, you're going to learn quickly. So he has promised. Didn't Rusty say that he's going to try and give everyone a go? Everyone will get a cap who at his alignment camp. So the guys who haven't been involved will be on the bench, I think. And come on, like I must admit, this Wee is a useful. When I saw the little 5-minute of him was it against the Barbarian, He looked very confident and very comfortable on the ball. So it'll be nice to see what he can do, especially in a test match against a side like Wales that is improving. They're not as good as Scotland or England, I don't think, but they are an improving team. They're getting better and playing with a lot more heart. And we've seen that through their franchises. I don't always want to be the dampener saying, this is going to be tougher than we think on Saturday, but never go into a test match thinking, that the opposition are just going to, fall away. It's not going to happen. And it didn't happen with the Scotland side. And we had to concentrate really hard and play really well against England to put them to bed as well. So it's been a really good start. You don't want to mess it up against Wales this weekend.
Nick, just to answer you, I think Rusty said Eben's only going to be back before the All Black. They're going to give him the break till then. Lurt should be back this week. Another guy who should be back this week is, or could be back this week, is Mornay van der Berg, who could also come into the reckoning as well. So, and Ethan Walker, they hope that Rusty was talking about. He wasn't really concussed. It was his gum guard that flashed, and they didn't actually understand why he was taken off the field. But I suppose with the protocols, when your gum guard flashes and They say there's an impact, but
Yeah.
they say there wasn't really an impact, so they're hoping to have him back as well. So and guys who like Kane Moody who pulled out, and Sia could be back as well. So those are the couple of the guys that he did mention last night. And Gav, maybe just coming lastly on Wales, they did lose against Argentina last night, but they're certainly not the team. They're a bit better than the team that we put 70 odd on in Cardiff last year.
Yeah, just on those injuries. Before the game yesterday, I passed Morne van den Berg and Quacher on hobbling along, going past the press box, and it just was a reminder of how many guys there are actually out at the moment. I always think it's a little bit disingenuous to sort of count 8 locks, because you can't put all 8 locks into the second row. It's a little bit like in cricket where you get one guy that gets dropped 5 times and everybody says, well, that was 5 wickets. It wasn't, because if you got the first one, that guy wasn't going to get dropped. But I'm actually, I am one of those few people who has seen improvement in Wales. I remember the last game of the season, like talking on another forum, there was like Italy had beaten England and Wales were playing them. And I remember I backed Wales to win that game, and people thought I was crazy. But I said I've seen an improvement in this Wales team, whereas Italy had played their final against England the week before in beating England, and that's often what happens when you come off a high. I think that under Steve Tandy, they are going places. I didn't really get to watch our last night's game properly, but it's a long way to travel to Argentina, and of course another long way to come back here. So you've got to take what we were saying about Scotland, what Nick was saying earlier about Scotland, the travel. I just want to say as well, just that what really impressed me about the BOK win yesterday was that Scotland, despite that travel, did bring their A game yesterday. Yeah. I mean, yesterday they were the team that beat France and beat England. But going back to Wales, I think they do need to be respected. I do think the BOKS will win, sort of almost regardless of the selections. But it's not a game where we can sort of go in and think like we're playing against Mickey Mouse here, and we won very comfortably in Cardiff in that last game, but we played almost as full strength team in that match. Remember?
Yeah,
Brenden?
We did. Yeah. Sorry. I muted myself. I muted myself for a second there. Sorry. One of these wonderful things about video calls. Guys, I think that's about it. Any last thoughts? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up and we'll chat again sometime in the week after we've seen Russie's selection. Just maybe final thoughts, starting with you, Nick, and then go across the gap.
No, it was I just think couldn't have asked for a better start. Russie, picked a really strong team against England. We said that would be as close to a World Cup final team, and apart from the 2 withdrawals before the game, I mean, they really did perform well and gave England a hiding in the end. And then Scotland, this guy was much more nervous about this game. But I must take my hat off to the team that played. They played with a lot of enthusiasm. They made a number of mistakes, collective mistakes on defence, obviously to allow these line breaks. But it didn't stop the fact that they scored 6 tries themselves, and that's going some. So a great start to this year, and we look forward to this next weekend and seeing perhaps 1 or 2 opportunities before what clearly is going to be the big challenge this year is the greatest rivalry.
Yeah, Brenden, I would say that the takeaway from yesterday's game was just what a good game it was and what an enjoyable experience it was to be there. And in fact, all the games played yesterday, with the referees sort of favouring the attacking teams these days, it certainly made for some really good games. And just one thing that I have been thinking of overnight as well is where. Okay, the BOKS are leading, obviously, the rugby the southern part of the Nations Championship, not rugby championship. Yeah. They're leading the southern part of the Nations Championship, but where Russie is also sort of so far ahead of the pack is if you look at what the other teams have to do. Steve Borthwick went back to England with this team to play their home game in Liverpool, which, because I'm a Liverpool supporter, I know is in England and is not in Fiji. So they beat Fiji in their big sort of home game yesterday very convincingly, but they had to basically rely on their first choice team. Dave Rennie went with his first choice team, or more or less his first choice team as well, against Italy yesterday, and I thought Italy were really good in that first half. So Russie is the one guy again who's really is testing his depth. I mean, and which is important in this World Cup year. It's understandable why Rennie's not changing his team. It's because he's a new coach and he's got to bed in a new system. So obviously you want your top players to keep playing because they need to get used to what is new, because to some extent they might be reinventing. But that's where I think I'm so pleased with the Boks at the moment, is that they sort of head and shoulders above the rest when in terms of I don't know what the numbers are at the moment. They made 10 changes. If you put in the Barbarians game, I mean, we must have gone through 40 players almost already. And as Nick says, it's been an impressive start because we've won all those games. We got the bonus points in both these 2 Championship Cup games. Let the good times roll.
Yeah, I think let's leave it there. It's a great Sunday morning, another Springbok victory. They're always good Sunday mornings when the Springboks win. Guys, thanks for joining us. We'll speak again in the week once we see what Rassie rolls out for Wales. It's going to be very interesting. But thanks for chatting. And guys, remember, it's Talking Box, proudly driven by Toyota. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up for us. It helps us with the algorithm. But we'll chat again soon. Cheers.
When there's tough to be done, you keep moving. Driving endless hours with just your thoughts to keep you company. And along that journey, you'll have a silent partner. One that gets to work without complaining or hesitating. Because when there's tough to be done...
Is it a Bucky? No. It's a Hilux.
There's the new generation Hilux.